Night street photography is a lot of fun, especially now that digital cameras have got far better ISO capabilities and image stabilization. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about how it's done, stick with us and enjoy this video. Night street photography is a lot of fun, especially if you're well prepared. And this means taking the right gear with you and thinking about accessories like a tripod or maybe a flash that you might want to use, and also thinking about where you're going to go and if it's going to be safe. Sometimes it can be better to take a friend along with you. So before you head out for your night photography session, consider what you're going to do and think about the type of photographs that you want to get, and this will help you be better prepared and to choose a better location. So picking a location is really important. Obviously the lighting at night is going to affect your photography as it does at any time, but at night in the street it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a mixture of light sources quite often, and you will not be able to control them. You're at their whim. When you're choosing a location, look at the lighting, think about the style of photograph that you want to get, and consider the contrast levels, the bright areas and the dark areas in the scene that you're going to be working with. Check out what's in the background. Whatever is going to be behind your main subject is vitally important. If it's a large dark area that sinks into blackness, this is going to give you quite a different type of image than if you've got bright lights behind your subject, causing it to be a silhouette if there's no light on the front. In these situations, you might want to consider using some flash, but this very much depends on the type of subject that you're photographing and also how far away from it you are. So a flash is going to work well in some circumstances, but it will completely not work in other circumstances when you're doing night street photography. And so when you've got large dark areas behind your subject, you've got to think about how to use them, because when you take that photo, these are going to go inky black. These are going to go really dark and consume possibly a whole lot of your composition space. So you've got to consider whether you want a large dark area, or if you need to change your angle, change your subject and find a better situation where you've got more light or more contrast between the bright and the dark areas in the background. And so an exact contrast to the dark background, some situations you're going to end up with bright lights in your background. And these can be very distracting because our eye is naturally drawn to the lightest area of an image. In some cases it can work, but you've got to make it work. You've got to be really aware and consciously think about how you're going to include the bright lights that are in your composition and how they affect your subject. Are they shining straight into your camera, or are they illuminating your subject maybe from the side? Can you see them? Are they hidden? If you can see them, you've got to be very careful with how you place them in your image. And if there are strong lights illuminating your subject, think about how they're doing it and think about the angle that you're taking the photo from. What's your point of view, and how does this change when you move from one position to another? It's often a good idea to move around your subject and just observe how the light's falling on it and where the shadows are occurring. And are these helping your composition, or are they interrupting the view of your subject? Most often with urban street photography at night, the lighting is going to be above you and coming down, so casting shadows on the ground. This can be really great, it can be very useful, or sometimes you're going to want some other light coming in from one side or another to illuminate a subject. So you want to photograph people walking past on the street. If you can find an advertising sign or something like that, and you can compose well, you can make good use of this lighting that comes from a lower angle and is quite often a bit softer, because the sign, if the sign's big and closer to your subject, it's going to throw a softer light on them than a street light that's like right high above them. And of course the angle of the light coming in at a similar angle to your subject is going to illuminate it in quite a different way than a strong overhead light will. And as I mentioned earlier, maybe you like to use a flash in your street photography. I do at times, and it can be a lot of fun to use some flash, especially if you're using the rear curtain sync on your camera, because this gives a really nice effect when you've got a moving subject. But you've got to be careful that you're not being distracting if you're photographing near traffic or anything like that. You've got to be aware of what's happening as you're firing your flash and what effect that this is having, not on just your photograph, but on the people around you. And with a flash particularly, you've got to experiment a lot, try different settings, but if you've never done it before, I encourage you to try it. Find a good location, an interesting subject, especially if there's some movement, and you can experiment a lot with motion blur, like using slow shutter speeds and just popping in a little bit of flash to get some enhancement and to slightly freeze a subject that's moving. It's a great fun thing to try and can produce some very interesting but very unpredictable results. So the key is to experiment a lot and take a lot of photographs. And I think at night, your best friend is your ISO setting on your camera. Modern digital cameras have incredible capacity to take really good quality images in low light. Don't be too worried about digital noise. Push your ISO up as high as you need to get the shutter speed and aperture settings that you want to use to get the best photos. And then you can always remove a lot of the digital noise during post-production. These days, the software has really become quite masterful at getting rid of that digital noise. So when you're preparing to go out for some night street photography, remember to check your gear, think about the location you're going. Will you need your flash? Will you need a tripod? Do you want to take them along anyway? Would it be a good idea to go out with a friend so that you've just got that added safety of not being on your own with your expensive camera gear on the street at night? Think about these things and go out and enjoy yourself and experiment. Try some slow shutter speeds, try some faster shutter speeds. Look at the lighting. Do you want bright lights in the background or do you want dark, inky black backgrounds? Experiment a lot and enjoy getting a feel for night street photography. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, if you've learned something new today, give us a thumbs up. And if you're new to our channel, click that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you can stay up to date when we release new videos.